Okay, so chapter 8, then, telephone calls. There's not as much to write down about this chapter because it's largely a conversation with one of the Stasi men, and there's comparatively little from Anna Funder's sort of perspective. It's more reporting what was actually said. But nonetheless, we'll push through, and then I'll stop it at various points. But I won't stop it as many times as certainly the last chapter. So here we go.
Do you know it? She does not wait for an answer. It was the smell, she says, of old men.
Bear with me. Here we go.
Chapter 8. Telephone calls. The phone rings. I still myself for another Stasi man, but it's a woman's voice. Anna? Anna, is that you? Something turns itself over in my chest. It's Miriam. Yes, Miriam, hello. I've been meaning... I'm just calling, she says, to say thank you for the other day. I wanted to thank you very much. What is she thanking me for? Suddenly I know I should have called her earlier. No, please. I thank you, I say. Something is odd here. A retreat from intimacy is taking place. It was very nice to meet you, she says, and I wish you good luck with your work. This sounds final. I want to ask whether she has heard about the unclaimed urns at the Runde Ecke, but it feels wrong. Perhaps we could meet again, I say, at some point. I'd love to, she says quickly. I'd love you to come down sometime. We could visit my friends who have a sculpture garden. It's very beautiful, and I'd like you to meet them, and... She trails off. Just call me and we'll go there. I will, I say, and thanks for everything. I replace the handset. If I were Miriam and had told the most painful and formative parts of my life to someone, I'm not sure I'd want to see that person again either, especially if my life had already been written down by other people, stolen and steered. The phone is made of black plastic. It's not a walk-around model, but as a compromise some nifty student attached an extremely long extension cord to it. I walk back through the bare and broken apartment, retracing the lead to its source.
Okay, so we... Oh, my goodness me, hang on, just... Why is it doing that? Is that... Sorry. Is that... Oh, here we go, right. So there's a hendiadys there of bare and broken apartment. It's unnecessary. In a sense, that whole section is unnecessary because it's referring to the fact that there's a long lead on the telephone, which again, there's no need to tell us that really. But it's she revels in the banal details of everyday life. So we've got that, and we've got the hendiadys of the bare and broken. Just a bit further up, a little bit on that, few lines up, we've got the metaphor stolen and steered. So her life had been stolen and steered. Just an interesting metaphor to use there, that sort of sense of being passive in one's own life, being steered by somebody else. It's an interesting metaphor to use. Again, you could look at that link with the Stasi and how they themselves have steered people's lives and affected other people's lives. The phone is made of black plastic. It's not a great point to make, but it's just interesting that she hones in, or should I say phones in, on the details there of like the actual material it's made from, like we saw last chapter with the acrylic and the woolly rugs and things like that. And then the last line of that section, lead to its source, is an interesting metaphor because, well, there's a few things. There's narrative progression there. It's sort of it's a metaphor. Yes, she's taking the phone back to where it goes back and hangs on, hooks. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've used an old-fashioned phone that hangs up on the wall. But anyway, so she's literally putting the phone back on the hook. On the hook, that's the word people use, isn't it? In the olden days. But it also has that sort of symbolism, or that the connotations, at least, of what the Stasi were doing, of sort of following leads back to their source. It sort of has a procedural, investigative sort of sense as well as the fact that this narrative is also leading to its source. It's also about trying to get back to Miriam and find that source of the story. So there's a few things wrapped up in that phrase there. Not a great deal we can do with it, but it's certainly a rich metaphor all the same. Let's keep going, shall we? Why not?
I've dragged my mattress into the living room to be closer to the heater. Every evening I watch television until I fall asleep. It is a canny box which receives only 3 channels, but they are of its own choosing, and one of them, although I have no dish, is a satellite channel. They are all black and white, and the terrestrial ones have constant snow. Late at night there's a program called Peep. Guests are interviewed and quizzed about their sex lives in seamy catch-22 hypotheticals. If your girlfriend brought her sister home to play with you, would you? Is there anything you have had to give up since the reassignment? Footage is shown to tempt the censorship provisions about sex expos, sex experiments, sex reviews and sexual art.
So an asynthetic list there about it's also paralleled with that sex expos, sex experiments, sex reviews and sexual art. So it's paralleled with that sort of prefix there, I guess, just to reinforce how taboo this late night program is, and how it's trying to be sensational really, and trying to get, it's like trying to attract the wrong sort of attention really, or just get any sort of attention. So there's the asynthetic list there of what the content is and the way in which it's trying to push the censorship provisions is just to reinforce again how much of it there is and how shameless it is. And just by repeating that prefix there, it also just makes it all sound a bit sordid and a bit taboo, which of course it is. And I think that's it for that one.
Tonight there's a feature about a Leipzig stripper named Heidi, aka Yasmina. Yasmina is stocky and firm-bodied with blue eyes and fake blonde hair. This evening she and her brood are doing a horror erotic show inspired by Walpurgisnacht, the night when witches meet to revel with the devil. On the stage, young witches wearing latex masks, leopard skin and lace are undressed by skeletons till they are nothing but rubber faces and sequined G-strings in the dry ice gloom. The camera zooms dizzyingly in and out from breasts and crotches. Then there's an interview with Yasmina, who has pushed her witch's face onto the top of her head so that the nose droops a little over her forehead, nodding when she speaks. The interviewer wants to know what it was like to have had the only strip school back in the GDR, and is it true, he puts the microphone closer to her face, that you stripped for the Politburo?
So we come to expect this focus on physical appearance, and of course we've got that here. Oh, sorry, I've got teams popping up all the time. So the physical appearance of all the characters she comes across, the people she meets. And here, this is particularly funny. I find it quite funny. The Yasmina, she's got this witch's mask already. So you're probably reading this already alert to the fact that if someone's wearing a mask, this will be explored further by Anna Funder, and it's the way that she puts it on her head, and the nose droops over her forehead, nodding when she speaks. It just sounds ridiculous. So we expect, blimey, teams all the time. We expect ridicule, and here this is absolute gift for Funder, isn't it? Really, because it's so funny anyway. This witch's nose hanging over her forehead. It just sounds hilarious. Well, just to me anyway. But it's just picking out the ridiculousness of this show, of the culture possibly, but also just of an individual's appearance. And so we always expect that. And she seems to zoom in a bit on noses and sort of protrusions and things that sort of, I don't know, just that seems to be what she likes to explore, whether it's makeup or whether it's faces in particular. They seem to have a particular fixation for Anna Funder.
Yasmina smiles and flutters a taloned hand. I always want to offer my public something a little different, she says. Then as now. She winks, the nose nods, and the programme cuts abruptly to the next segment. Plaster casts of body parts.
Right, before we get into the body parts, this is stretching it a little bit, but the nose nodding is a little bit. it's farcical in itself, isn't it? The nose itself is nodding. It's not the girl, it's not Yasmina that's nodding, it's the nose that's nodding, which in turn represents Yasmina the person, which presumably means that she has stripped for the Politburo, but she's not saying as much. Now, this is a bit of a stretch, but I think it's there if we want to go for it. It's sort of a synecdoche because the nose actually represents the person, it represents the whole thing. And so it's not so much the witch's nose that's nodding, it's actually Yasmina that's nodding, but it's sort of a synecdoche there, but used to make a mockery, really, make fun of the way that it looks. And it all sounds a bit sort of pantomime-esque, doesn't it? And a bit farcical, I would say. So, okay, let's get into the Plaster of Paris section.
The first is a female torso, the second a pair of long-nailed fingers either side of a clitoris. An unctuous man's voice says, "Peep special! For 250 marks you too can have your most intimate parts preserved forever in Plaster of Paris."
Peep special. I have nothing to say about that other than that. It's just brilliant, isn't it? Peep special. But there's nothing to say. I mean, I guess apart from the fact it's sort of ridiculous in itself, and it's kind of taboo, isn't it, as well? So she's, again, zooming in on the sensationalist, or the sensational, I suppose. She is sensationalist, zooming in on the sensational and the taboo and the sort of the human aspects, the very physical human aspects, and we get more of that further in. We've met it before with sort of bodily fluids and things, which we come back to again, I think, in this chapter, actually. Okay, so let's push on a bit further.
I'm no longer capable of making sense of this. The whiteness of the plaster reminds me only of the dead Lenin's head on Milka's desk. I switch channels and find my favourite programme. It is manna for insomniacs, people like me who do not want to stay still. A camera is attached to the top of a vehicle. As it drives, the pictures glide over the roads and lanes and highways of eastern Germany in glorious summer.
There's something to me about the alliterative glide and glorious there that just stands out. And I wouldn't have mentioned this other than the fact that it sort of leads into this very surreal dream sequence that we get in the next few lines. And so it's sort of gliding and glorious. It just has this almost surreal, ethereal sense of not really being fixed to anything. It's sort of already quite dreamlike, which it just foreshadows what's going to happen next with this dream sequence. This is why this book tends to be considered so novel-like and fiction-like, because it does have this very, very figurative and narrative and prose-like language and structure as well.
The footage is mesmerising. Flying bodiless through villages, down the main streets and then out into the countryside again. The shops are open or closed. Aproned women sweep footpaths where people sit drinking coffee. Mothers run from under the umbrellas after straying children. Road workers lean around in overalls. This is the world unfrozen. It's black and white and snowing on my screen, but I know that it is really the bright yellow of rape, the green haziness of wheat, and the heavier green of summer oaks lining the road. Occasionally we stop at traffic lights, level with the hooded eye. Then on and on, moving magically through village after thawed village, places I have never been and may never go.
Just to clarify there, and you're probably way ahead of me, but when I first scanned through this, I thought it was an example of kinesthesia in that she was sort of applying colours to crimes, but she's simply referring to the seeds being grown in the field, so rapeseed or wheat or oaks, and just the colours of. So it is sensory, but it's not kinesthesia. It is just the colour sense. So she's immersing the reader in this world by referring to the bright colours of nature, but it is leading us into that very vivid dream sequence of having these strong colours and this idea of gliding and floating bodiless. It's a very surreal. It's a very surreal really, rather than real. And it's for a non-fiction piece. It's a very strange section of feeling disconnected, which I guess she does at this point. She's trying to find the answers. She doesn't know the answers. She's trying to kind of hunt down leads with these various Stasi men, former employees, and she can't really get very far with her investigations at this point. So it does feel a bit like she's sort of flying bodiless, but it's a very figurative way of portraying how she herself feels coming through this unconscious dream sequence.
In my sleep, I continue soundlessly through the countryside, exhilarated by the wind on my skin. Suddenly I am joined by another woman flying at the same height. There is a blur where her face should be, but that doesn't bother me at all. She is naked, apart from pink rubber gloves. Her nipples are puckered a deeper pink, and her pubic hair is luscious gold.
Yeah. So we expect Funda to zoom in on the graphic and the bodily details, but I think it's not very flattering, is it? I mean, I don't know, let's not get too far into it, but her nipples are puckered, a deeper pink. I don't know, puckered, I suppose the connotations of a kiss, doesn't it? But it's not flattering, I don't think. It's also all wrinkly. So she's picking up on the very unflattering aspects at that point particularly. Although luscious is quite a nice pre-modifier, isn't it? But let's move on, shall we?
I'm startled that I'm not alone in the air, that she's naked. "The gloves, of course, are for driving," she says. I nod, and I look at my hands. I have no gloves. Then I look at my body and see that I am naked too. My feeling of well-being evaporates. I glance down over the main street of a village. There are people beneath us. The church bell starts to ring. It rings and will not stop, and soon I know I'll drop. I have no driving gloves, and they'll all see me fallen and naked and pointless.
So yeah, very surreal dream sequence here, and emphasised towards the end by the repetition of ring. It rings, and rings. It just adds to that sense of abstract surrealism. And then that repetition, I have no driving gloves. We already know she has no gloves, and these driving gloves are the pink rubber gloves. So it's very surreal, very illogical. And then they'll all see me fallen and naked and pointless. That triadic structure there as well towards the end. Ending with bathos, I think, as well, although it's quite poignant bathos because it says fallen and naked. Okay, that's, is what it is. But pointless is that's quite profound, isn't it? So you've got this bathetic ending to that paragraph of the whole dream sequence really, of where it's not just that she's naked and fallen from the sky, but she's pointless. And that's quite profound bathos towards the end of that paragraph and that whole sequence.
I wake up to get the phone. The clock says 2:30 a.m, heart attack hour, the hour of bad news from home. Or another Stasi man? Telephone harassment is common, but I can't be high on their list. It must be the 15th ring by the time I find the black phone, the duvet wrapped around me. "Hello?" "Hello, my friend." A lubricated voice from my local pub coming down the line through a mouth with a pipe in it, a thick Saxon accent and a beard.
Interesting description here of the appearance, even down the phone, of a lubricated voice, which is a euphemism for being drunk. But again, it's quite a figurative style. It's an interesting choice for a non-fiction text. So she's really creating these. It's characterization really. She's building character, even though these are real people. She's sort of caricaturing them really through these verb choices of lubricated voice. He's drunk, and then she describes his appearance: a mouth with a pipe in it, a thick Saxon accent, and a beard. Well, how can you tell someone's got a beard over the phone? I don't know. And the way he's holding his chin up with the receiver, it's sort of, again, she's fixating on the appearance. We know she looks at faces and facial hair, particularly the red moustache of the psychologist in the last chapter. Here, there's a man with a beard, Klaus, and maybe it's just because she knows who he is, but it's interesting she focuses in on the facial features.
It's Klaus. By the sound of it, he's holding his chin up with the receiver. "How'd you pull up after last time?" he asks. "Feel like another drinking session?" "Klaus, it's 2:30 in the morning." "Come on," he says. "This time the other night you were just getting into it." I have no wish to be reminded of other nights. In my view, One of the conventions among decent drinking partners is that where there isn't actual amnesia, it should be simulated. The other night we filled the air with words and smoke that are all gone now. My only memory is of the hangover I took with me to Leipzig.
I love that, the metaphor, the hangover I took with me to Leipzig. It's like something from, I think we've mentioned this before, but it sounds like something from a Raymond Chandler novel. And if you've not read The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler, you really should. And if you get a chance during lockdown or during over the summer, it's a really great book to read. Quite short, but it's a book from which so many references are taken, and in film and in literature. So it's a book that will reward you in the reading of it. And here it feels to me like something straight out of a Raymond Chandler book. The hangover I took with me to Leipzig. Yeah, it's just very figurative and feels like something you'd find in a novel rather than in a non-fiction account. So she's sort of romanticising and using poetic features to describe the reality, which I guess if you were to look at it through a sort of psychoanalytical filter, you'd say it's sort of her trying to escape. It's escapism, really. It's fictionalising the fact, which is something that she tends to do.
I had a big day. It's nice here, he says. They're playing our song. This is not a come-on. He means they're playing his song. Klaus Renft is the legendary Mik Jegger of the Eastern Bloc. He lives around the corner from me in a one-room apartment lined with videos and posters of his band, the Klaus Renft Combo. There are always sports bags full of beer and every kind of smoking equipment known to man. We are both regulars at the local pub, which we use effectively as a living room. The pub sound system is pumping out the plaintive and beautiful song Hilflos, re-recorded on their recent comeback album. "You still there?" he says. "Yep, and I'm staying here." "Sweet dreams then, kiddo," he slurs. When he hangs up, the receiver misses its cradle and dangles upside down in the air. I take the phone back to bed. I lie listening to Hilflos, and then I hang up.
This is probably me just overanalyzing and sort of reading this almost like I would a fiction book, but there's two things. The dangling upside down phone is sort of ridiculous again, isn't it? It's sort of it's very human foibles of mistakes being made and telephones not being put back on the cradle correctly, and it sort of is this ridiculous image of the phone dangling upside down. But it's also, and this is a bit of a stretch, but is it also a bit like her? She also sort of dangling upside down, not literally obviously, but she's sort of in limbo, and we've seen it through the dream sequence, but also in this point in the narrative she's also sort of dangling upside down, almost not quite knowing where to go next with her investigation.
I wake to the phone ringing. It's morning. "Guten Tag. You put an advertisement in the Märkische Allgemeine." "Yes, thank you for calling. I am looking to speak with people who worked for the ministry in order to be able to represent what it was like. I'm writing about life in the GDR." There is a pause. "The notice said you were Australian." "Yes." "You are Australian?" "Yes." "You are from Australia?" "That's right."
So here you've got this awkwardness between the two of them, and that continues into their actual face-to-face meeting as well. And it's shown through this stickomythia, which is where they have these very short one-line dialogue. I'm not sure if I mentioned that before, the stickomythia technique, but if I haven't, it's... Oh, hang on a second. Sorry about that. It's the wonders of homeschool, eh? Stickomythia is so spelled Stichomythia. So I'll start with Stichom. That's M for I don't know, Manchester. Ythia, Stickomythia. And it just means that short staccato type dialogue, and it shows that awkwardness, and it can show lots of things, but in this case it definitely is the awkwardness, and that's not a poetic or figurative technique on the part of Funder, that's just reporting what was said, but that's the type of dialogue it is. And I suppose from a linguistic point of view, it's sort of, I don't know, adjacency pairs almost, because you've got these very obvious answers. It's he knows the answer, that she's Australian. You are Australian. It's a rhetorical question. Yes, you're from Australia. That's right. So it's a few things, and you can. I would say that if you want to use this, you can refer to it however you like, really. But stick a mythia there, or adjacency pairs, or rhetorical questions, or a combination of all three really would be useful, depending on how you want to approach that one.
In the GDR, a great swathe of geography remained theoretical because people couldn't travel outside the Eastern Bloc. If Easterners thought about Australia at all, it was as an imaginary place to go in the event of a nuclear catastrophe.
You are writing in English or in German?
In English.
I will meet with you,
he says,
in order to set the record straight. It is possible that in Australia your media has not tainted people against us, and that there, at least, we can put our side, with objective information and analysis. Are you available tomorrow?
Yes.
In Potsdam in the afternoon?
Yes.
Then I will meet with you as follows. I will be outside the church on Market Square at 1500 hours. I will have tomorrow's Markische Allgemeine rolled up under my left arm. Understood?
Yes, I say obediently, although I'm incredulous that this man wants to play spy games 7 years after the fall of the wall. And then I ask, "What is your name?" Another pause.
Vins.
Till tomorrow then, Herr Vins. I'm early to the church and stand alone in its forecourt. The sky is blanket grey and close. I'm wearing all-purpose black boots and a black coat with fake fur trim, and I stand out a mile. I have so obviously nothing to do but wait for an assignation. At the market next to the church, women in bright scarves and woolen gloves push their strollers around caravan stalls, nosing under the red and white striped awnings. They buy potatoes and pickles from vats and chunks of pink liverwurst. At the deli, a man with ham-hock forearms serves a council worker a sausage and a piece of bread on a paper plate. The bells chime 3 times. I hop from one cold leg to the other.
Her appearance there, then, the black boots, the black coat, the fake fur trim, it's the appearance. She's very concerned with appearance, as we know, even down to the fake fur trim. But I suppose she had to say fake. I suppose you couldn't just say fur, because people would assume that she was wearing real fur. Black boots, black coat. And then the appearance of these other women, bright scarves, woolen gloves. But then nosing under the red and the white striped awnings, you've got this quite bestial imagery. We've seen it before with the way she describes people as sort of animalistic. We mentioned it with the guide, the tour guide's flock, and in the last chapter she guided them around the Stasi headquarters. But now these people have been described as nosing under the red and white striped awnings. It's quite a bestial image, I would say, of sort of an animal nosing around, snuffling under. Well, I don't know where snuffling came from, but you know what I mean. Buying potatoes and pickles. I mean, that plosive alliteration there, it's just so banal, isn't it? It's just so everyday. A humdrum potatoes and pickles from vats. It's not very nice, is it? Just sort of these huge vats full of potatoes and pickles. It sounds, I don't know, to me it sounds quite grotesque. But then I don't really like pickles very much, so maybe that's just my prejudice. I've got a pickle prejudice. And chunks of pink liverwurst. I mean, it just sounds disgusting to me. Chunks of pink liverwurst. At the deli, a man with ham-hock forearms. More meat references. It's all meaty. Very unflattering reference to this man with his ham-hock. Oh my goodness me, Teams is absolutely going berserk. His ham-hock forearms. So he's got big, overweight arms, but he's been described as like a pig, like a ham. So again, we've got that. And then just to save me pausing a bit further down, we've got she meets the man, and he's about 60, paunchy, and jowly as a hound dog. Again, more bestial imagery. That's similarly being used there to describe him like a dog, with sort of, the which I think, didn't we get that before? We were describing, was it Mielke who's been, no, it wasn't, he was the one with the big forehead, wasn't it? One of them was being a bit Honecker, that was described as being a bit like a sort of, like a dog, I think it was, with saggy jowls.
After 10 minutes, a man approaches with a newspaper rolled under his left arm. He's about 60, paunchy and jowly as a hound dog. He's wearing a foreign-looking tweed suit coat. When he takes the newspaper from under his arm to greet me, I see it even has leather elbow patches. He is disguised as a Westerner.
"The parking here is terrible,"
Herr Wind says by way of apology for being late, but also as if it were my fault. He speaks in authoritative barks.
"I suggest we go to a neutral place," he says. "I usually use the Hotel Merkur."
Neutral? Usually? Fine by me, Herr Wind, I say, and we set off on foot to the hotel, a good 15 minutes from here. It occurs to me that he has hidden his car somewhere so that, should I succumb to the urge, I can't tail him. I'm glad to get moving anyway.
More characterisation here. This is, he clearly can't leave the old habits of avoiding being followed, and he's parked his car somewhere out of sight. And even the fact that he wants to meet by the church at 3 o'clock with a newspaper under his arm, it's sort of this very old-fashioned, but kind of, I don't know, even she says it's ridiculous, and she plays along, but it's sort of, what's the word, she's incredulous that the man wants to play spy games, and we see a bit more of this as we go through this this chapter, and really he's sort of laughable and quite low level, or she assumes, and we therefore assume too, almost this sort of playing at being a spy, and it seems more like a pantomime. I don't know if you can hear all these Teams pop-ups. I'm really sorry if it's coming across on the recording. Maybe it isn't because it's going through the microphone, but anyway, sorry if it is.
The hotel has a low-ceilinged lobby with brown booth seats and a lot of plastic plants. There is no one else here. We order coffee from a waiter with a strawberry mark over one side of his nose, and I start to explain to Herr Wind my interest in speaking with former Stasi employees. He waves me silent. He waits until the waiter is well out of earshot.
Just a quick point there about even the waiter gets a reference. We don't need to know what the waiter looks like, but we're given that anyway, partly to build realism, I suppose, and give us a sense of being immersed in the scene. But a strawberry mark over one side of his nose. She's not telling us about the positive. She's telling us about something that's an affliction's too strong, but it's something that's unusual about his face and his features.
Then he leans forward.
"One cannot be too careful these days,"
he says, tapping his nose and glancing towards the waiter's back. Then he eyeballs me.
"First, please show me your ID," he says.
"Bitte?"
"I would like to see your identity card,"
he says. "I don't have one."
"What do you mean?"
he asks. "In Australia, we don't have ID cards." He is speechless. He looks at me as though all his suspicions are confirmed. I come from a place so remote, so primitive, that the people there have not yet been labelled and numbered. I give in.
So I'll just pause it there. That hendiadys, I suppose, as well, has been labelled and numbered. It just sort of, I don't know, the hendiadys, it reinforces the mechanical nature of the Stasi, the procedural routine of what they did.
"But I have a passport," I say, and pull it out of my bag. There are a great many things one cannot do anonymously here, from buying a mobile phone card to travelling on a train. I have had to prove my identity so frequently that I now carry my passport around with me like a fugitive. He reads my date of birth and checks me against my younger self. Then he flicks through its pages to see where I've been in the last few years.
"Ah, Czechoslovakia,"
he mutters at one point. Then he sees that back in 1987 I was in the GDR.
"So you visited my country,"
he says approvingly. Yes, I came here to Potsdam and I went to Dresden, I say. And I went to a party once with some friends in East Berlin. I remember a cold, grey day in Potsdam like this one, the streets deserted. Our busload of undergraduates visited only the paved and gilded parts of this show town, selected streets made into a neat sheep run for tourists. In Dresden, we were shunted up a hill in a cable car and fed a meal which, including the steak substitute, came entirely from tins.
Just a quick one there about the animal, the bestial imagery again, the neat sheep run for tourists. Again, always reducing humanity down to its basest level is what Funder seems to want to do. And there's a humility in that. I think she includes herself in that sort of bestial description. It's not that she's condescending, it's that that's just how she views humanity, as being quite base and animalistic.
At my East Berlin party, the host, a Jewish journalist of impeccable communist pedigree, was revealed after the wall fell to have been an informer. I may gain credibility in this man's eyes from having a couple of hammer and compass stamps in my passport, but it could not be said that I knew his country. I visited it only long enough to wonder what was being kept from me. I asked to see Herr Winz's ID too, but he fobs me off with a laugh and a dismissive gesture. Behind him the waiter starts, as if this could be a summons, but I catch his eye and shake my head slightly. He slides his notepad back into his apron pocket. Herr Winz opens his briefcase and takes out papers and pamphlets and a thesis bound in a springboard cover. Then he places a small hard-back book on top of the pile. It is Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels' The Communist Manifesto. He tells me he worked from 1961 to 1990 at the ministry in Potsdam, exclusively in counter-espionage. He picks up the thesis and reads its title. The work of the Ministry for State Security on the defense against intelligence infiltration by the secret services of the NATO states against the GDR, presented from the viewpoint of a member of the Division for Counter-Espionage, Regional Administration, Potsdam. This is a discussion paper I wrote based on my work at the ministry. If you read this, you will learn a lot of what you want to know. I flick to the front page and see that the paper was written in 1994 for the Potsdam Working Group of the Insider Committee for the Re-examination of the History of the Ministry for State Security, Incorporated. This was written for the Insider Committee? I ask. Yes. You are a member? Yes, but we have changed our name to the Society for the Protection of Civil Rights and the Dignity of Man. The Insider Committee. Civil Rights and the Dignity of Man? I have heard of this group. It is a more or less secret society of former Stasi men who write papers putting their side of history, lobby for entitlements for former Stasi officers, and support one another if facing trial. They have close links to the successor party to the SED, the Party of Democratic Socialism, and it is alleged that together they may have access to the tens of millions of marks which belong to the SED and remain unaccounted for. It is widely suspected, however, that these men also harass people who they fear may uncover them. A former border guard who appeared on a television talk show was threatened with an acid attack and had to be placed under police protection. Home-delivered harassment is popular. One man had a ticking package delivered to his doorstep. Wives have had to sign for porn not ordered by their husbands. The strangest incident I heard of was when a man was delivered a truckload of puppies, yelping outside his door and the driver demanding a signature. Car brake leads have been cut. Accidents and deaths reverse-engineered. The child of an outspoken writer was picked up from school by a person or persons unknown and taken to drink hot chocolate just for an hour or so. Detaining people clearly has its own pleasures, a habit hard to break. I look at Herr Winz, and suddenly the landscape here seems crowded with victims, of the Nazis, of Stalin, of the SED and the Stasi, and now this lot, wannabe victims of democracy and the rule of law.
So there's the synthetic list there, isn't there? Of we've just had the Nazis of Stalin, the SED, and the Stasi, and now this lot. So the synthetic list of, well, she already says crowded with victims. There's a metaphor there, crowded, and it's reinforced by the structural technique of an asynthetic. So I keep saying asynthetic list, an asynthetic list. And just while we're on that line, at the end of that section, that wannabe is an interesting lowering of the register by using a blended neologism. So it's a new word, blending want to be together to make a neologism, but it's a blended neologism. And the reason she uses that is to lower the register, I suppose, and by lowering the register, it lowers the status of the insider committee. This person that she's with now has been one of them, and he's a wannabe victim of democracy and the rule of law. She's sort of poking fun at him and suggesting that actually his case is fraudulent, and he has no case really for claiming being a victim.
What does the Insider Committee do? I ask.
We try to present an objective view of history, he says, to combat the lies and misrepresentation in the Western media.
It is said that the Insider Committee is also a front to coordinate action against those working to uncover what the Stasi did to people.
I wouldn't know about that.
Why not?
I am a small fish, he says. I am here to tell you about the excellent work, the masterful work of the Stasi in counter-espionage. That is where I spent my life.
Either Herr Vins doesn't know much, or he's not telling. He won't respond to my questions about the Insider Committee, or talk about himself either. Each time I ask him about the reality of life in the GDR, he returns to the beauties of socialist theory. I think he hopes, through me, to sow the seeds of socialism in an untainted corner of the world.
Interesting, she uses that natural, organic metaphor of sowing the seed of socialism, blending the politics, blending the very man-made, synthetic idea of politics and espionage with the very organic metaphor of sowing a seed of socialism. And that sibilance, I think, particularly is, I don't know, maybe it's a coincidence, but it just seems to draw that phrase together. Sowing the seeds of socialism has a certain rhythm and a sibilance to it that makes it stand out and makes it seem worthy of discussion.
We had people everywhere, he says.
His main interest seems to have been placing young, committed East Germans into lives in West Germany, where they would eventually come into the sights of the West German Security Service and be recruited.
We had them very high up. We had Gunther Guillaume as Chancellor Brandt's secretary, and Klaus Curon in West German counterintelligence, and the woman who prepared Chancellor Kohl's daily intelligence briefings.
This is true, but it is widely known. I find it hard to believe that Herr Vins was personally involved at a high level. He's too underconfident and unconvincing with all his spy play-acting to have ever done it for real. I try to imagine what he probably did do because he won't tell me. The best I can come up with is that he wrote procedural manuals. But Herr Vins is warming to his tale.
The CIA, now, they were bandits, a very nasty crew. Did you know they made 20 attempts on Fidel Castro's life?
They couldn't have been very good then, I smile. He looks startled. He is not amused.
Bandits! He shouts. I said they were bandits!
I cast a look behind him in the direction of the waiter, shuffling busily at his station. If he had any curiosity about this man's origins, it is now well and truly sated.
More ridiculing of this particular character and this strong caricature development of this man, and here he is now shouting. This is some supposed spy or former spy, a master of espionage, and here he is shouting his head off about these bandits and being so wary at the start of the conversation about what the waiter could hear, and now clearly he's shouting so the whole hotel can hear him. So there's a sarcasm here, a sort of knowing sarcasm from from Thunder, and I think it just pokes fun at these quite ridiculous Stasi men who actually, when spoken to on a personal level, seem quite weak and ill. I don't know, really sort of, underinformed almost. Seem quite bigoted and quite ridiculous in their ideas and presentation.
How are you treated today as a former Stasi man? I ask. I would like to find out why he is disguised as a Westerner.
The foe has made a propaganda war against us, a slander and smear campaign, and therefore I don't often reveal myself to people. But in Potsdam, people come up and say," he puts on a small, sorry voice, "You were right. Capitalism is even worse than you told us it would be. In the GDR, you could go out alone at night as a woman. You could leave your apartment door open."
You didn't need to, I think. They could see inside anyway.
This capitalism is, above all, exploitation. It is unfair. It's brutal. The rich get richer and the masses get steadily poorer. And capitalism makes war. German imperialism in particular. Each industrialist is a criminal at war with the other, each business at war with the next.
He takes a sip of coffee and holds his hand up to stop me asking any more questions.
Capitalism plunders the planet, too. This hole in the ozone layer, the exploitation of the forests, pollution. We must get rid of this social system. Otherwise the human race will not last the next 50 years.
There is an art, a deeply political art, of taking circumstances as they arise and attributing them to your side or the opposition, in a constant tallying of reality towards ends of which it is innocent. And it becomes clear as he speaks that socialism as an article of faith can continue to exist in minds and hearts regardless of the miseries of history. This man is disguised as a Westerner, the better to fit unnoticed into the world he finds himself in, but the more he talks, the clearer it becomes that he is undercover, waiting for the second coming of socialism. He pulls himself together and lowers his voice, leaning towards me in a conspiratorial way. His breath is hot and bitter from coffee, and small flecks of brownish spittle spray over the cardboard thesis cover. "Have this." He passes me the Communist Manifesto from the top of his pile. It looks well loved. "You should read it," he hisses. "Then you will understand a great deal more. There is, even today, no better analysis of capitalism. It's a present from me." He takes out a pen and inscribes it to me, "as a memento of our Potsdam discussion." "Thank you very much." Herr Vins collects his material and stands up to go. Then he puts one set of knuckles down on the table and pushes his face close to mine. "You can take it from me," he says. "I have lived through a revolution already in 1989, and I know the signs." His voice is getting louder. I can see the veins in his forehead.
"This system is on its last legs. Its days are numbered. Capitalism will not last. The revolution," he raises his fist off the table, "is coming." Then he marches through the lobby out the front door, and the waiter brings me the bill.
Okay, so we've got just, it finishes off there with a bit of bathos, doesn't it? That all this sort of pomp and arrogance and bigotry, really. But then it finishes with this very, again, grounded ending where the waiter comes and brings her the bill and she has to pay for this. And not that she doesn't want to or doesn't expect to, but it's just that sort of, it's anticlimactic after all this sort of build-up and this sort of fear-mongering, really, of what's his name? Herr Vince. And then it's just down to the bill, the waiter brings the bill. after he's marched through the lobby and out the front door, and the waiter brings her the bill. So it's bathos. But just up a little bit further from that, this is a technique. I've been hoping we'd find some of this somewhere. It's a great new technique, new term to add to our glossaries. Hopefully keeping those glossaries up to date as well. He says, the revolution, he raises his fist off the table, is coming. So it's separating a phrase with some narrative. Now, it's a bit of a stretch, but the technique that you can refer to this as is temesis, Tmesis, temesis. And it's when you sort of break a word in half, and this is more of a phrase rather than a word. It's like, I don't know, like if you say it's fan-flipping-tastic, that's a real example of temesis. If you sort of put another word in the middle, and it's often a taboo word, but here it's been used for dramatic effect because it's about him raising his fist off the table, and it heightens the bathos of the bill coming at the end.
A cheery voice. No one can come to the phone right now, but if you leave a message, someone will call back as soon as possible. If it's good news, even sooner. Bye. Miriam, it's Anna. I start. Then I hear the electronic beep. I start again. Miriam, it's Anna calling. Just to say hello, really. No news. I'll call back another time, or you can reach me on the Berlin number. Hope all's well. I can't think of any other small thing to say. Bye. For a few days afterwards, each time the phone rings, I think it might be her, but it's mostly Stasi men. After a week or so, despite the Stasi men, I somehow remain hopeful when the phone rings. Another week passes, and this feeling coagulates into something grimmer. Have I offended her? I fill her silence with possible scenarios. She's lost my number. She's on holiday. And even the full-blown, now that she has relived her story, it's all too much, and she's swinging from a rope in her tower. Despite the vividness of this last, I decide to give it another fortnight or so before I call again. At some level, at least, I'm aware that I'm following a person who has been hounded enough. Does telling your story mean you are free of it, or that you go, fettered, into your future?
Okay, so just to round off then that last section, we've got very much human foibles here. This the full start on the leaving the message on the answer phone. It's a very human mistake. We don't need to know that. She doesn't need to include that at all, but she does because she likes to include those human foibles and the mistakes that people make, including herself, and that's why it has that sense of humility and groundedness in this narrative. And then what else do we have? Oh yeah, so then there's I mentioned before the bodily fluids bit and the sort of references to disease and illness and human illness. And I think we've got that a little bit here with the feeling coagulates into something grimmer. Now, that verb coagulates, it does just mean thickens, but I mean, you tend to hear it more in a medical context if it's through the blood, so blood coagulating and causing clots and causing strokes and all that sort of thing. So it can be anything, but I just thought it's an interesting verb because it tends to be used in the lexical field of medicine or human illness or I don't know, weakness, I suppose. So again, it reminds me certainly of that feeling of mortality and human foibles. And then finishing off the story with quite profound questions. In fact, they're rhetorical questions, aren't they? There's a rhetorical profundity, I would say. Does telling your story mean you're free of it, or that you go fettered into your future? I mean, it's quite profound, isn't it? That by telling your story, you're actually making yourself feel even more restricted in the future as you go through, always bound by something that you've said in the past or you've shared with somebody else. So it's quite a profound thing to end with, and it just reinforces the uncertainty that she has, I think, at this point too, that she's not sure where this story will take her and where it will lead, and I think she feels a bit unhinged at this point as well. And that's it for chapter 8. Hopefully that works okay, and hopefully that's helpful. And if you can add to your analysis grid for Chapter 8 and keep those up to date. That'll be very useful. And I'll hear you again, or you'll hear me again, for Chapter 9. Julia has no story. Bye.